Welcome everybody to this review of Age of Wonders Planetfall. This is Solaris and I'm absolutely love the sci-fi genre. I like Age of Wonders in general. I've been playing through the third Age of Wonders 3 in the past, and I quite enjoyed it. And when I saw that they were doing a sci-fi version, I said I need to check it out. So without further ado, let's dive deeper into my review of Age of Wonders Planetfall. So in this review, what I'm gonna do is provide the main pros and cons that I think the game has, and at the end I will also give my honest impression of the game and resume those pros and cons at the end of the video. So if you just want to see the pros and cons summarized, you can skip directly to the end of the video. If you want to have a little bit more elaboration on the actual review in the game itself, then please stay tuned and I will give you the explanation of why I think those pros and cons are. The first pro that I'm gonna talk about is the races. There are 6 races in the game, and here you can see there's the first race. Those are the Amazons, which are all around biology and genetics. We have the Kenku, that are a race of insects and hive-minded, which are pretty cool. We have the Devar, which is globally spaced wolves and heavily acts around mining and exploitation of resources and industry. We have the Syndicate, which is kind of space slavers. Yeah. And we have the Vanguard, which are the humans that are pretty advanced in this law and setting. But I don't want to spoil the story, but globally they had to make a jump and they were frozen in space-time for 200 years, and after when they came back, the civilization as they know it have changed. But yeah, the Vanguard are pretty cool, pretty high-tech. And we have the last race, which is the Assembly, which I found pretty cool in the idea, which is a race of people that had to evolve by or survive, I should say, by taking the remains of their enemy and assembling them with cybernetics, and that's how they reproduce and how they survive. So each race found kind of pretty unique. Some of them are pretty tropey maybe, but they're distinct enough and original enough to feel that they have all their own identity, and personally I like each races pretty much. So that's for the first pro. There are 6 different races and they feel all unique. The second pro that I have with Age of Wonders is the fact that the units and the heroes are extremely moddable. This is just an example of in-game footage of one of my heroes, Sean Gendel. And as you can see, like each hero had the possibility to fit a weapon, a primary weapon, different equipments that you can unlock with research, and it can be pretty different from hero to hero, units to units. You can save templates. So as you can see there, I changed my hero from having a vehicle to having a ground weapon, and you know, I found the idea pretty cool. So you can have your hero on a motorbike, or as an air unit, or with a lightsaber, or with a rifle, whatever. Like whatever you want to play, you can customize your hero. You can customize your units to a very good degree, and I really appreciate it. The third pro of the game is the tactics. The game feels fairly deep, pretty interesting. It doesn't seem too hard to grasp at the beginning, but as you begin to understand the different abilities, different technology, the different traits of the units, you realize that the game is way deeper than it looks, and you need to take cover. You have Overwatch, you have different abilities for different units, and you really need to understand what those units do Otherwise, yeah, you're gonna lose battle. So it's very important to understand your units, what they can do, and what you need to research in order to survive in the territory that you're in, or against the type of enemy that you're gonna be facing. So yeah, the tactic of the game is pretty good, and if you enjoy tactics or tactical game, Age of Wonders Planetfall will deliver. Another aspect that the game really shines is the graphics. I really enjoyed watching the different scene, the different landscape, which feel very different. As you can see, I'm trying to show you the different landscapes that I encountered during my playthrough, and yeah, every scene seemed pretty different, give a different atmosphere, and I really appreciate it. The units are pretty well rendered, and yeah, the game looks good in general. Here you can see how the map looks and the terrain looks, and you can really feel that the developers have tried to, put a lot of effort in the environment, in the maps, and also the general map looks pretty good. So you can zoom out, you can zoom in, a little bit like in I think in Civilization 6 they do that a little bit, but as you can see, the map is divided in sectors. They are not divided in tiles, so that's gonna put more pressure in order to conquer territories, because since you have territories divided in sectors, then if an enemy conquer an entire sector, that's multiple tiles. So yeah, the game is enticing you to take the main points quickly, and it favorizes encounters pretty fast in the game. So I really appreciate that aspect. Like, you're not gonna spend hours and hours of playing the game without encountering other races or independent factions. There's always something to do, and it keeps the game fresh and interesting, and I appreciate that a lot. Another aspect that I really like in the Age of Wonders series is the roleplay aspect of the game. So multiple times in the game, you're gonna encounter independent factions, and you will be able to discuss with those people, request their aid, or conquer them. The choice is yours, but if you work with them, they will give you missions that they want you to achieve, and then you can be rewarded in influence points, in equipment, which will help you. You can spend those influence points in order to have units from them, or request them to leave areas, or maybe even to request aid. So I like the mechanic. I found it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's not necessarily something that I saw a lot of in different games, and it helped keep the game interesting. There's always something to do, whether you are fighting other factions, one of the 6 races, or you're fighting independent factions, or you're helping them. There's always something going on in the game, and you never get bored, and I really like this mechanic a lot. Another pro of the game is the diplomacy system. The diplomacy it's not necessarily the most in-depth that I saw, but it's pretty good. You can discuss with the different factions. You can do proposals, counter proposals that will try to take advantage of you. But after, if they respect you, then they will be your allies. They will try to help you. They help defend your territory. Yeah, I mean, you can request a fair amount of different diplomatic options. It feels deep enough, and yeah, I found that if you want to play a more diplomatical route, you definitively have more than enough. Another aspect of the game that I really like, and I hinted that previously a little bit, but the mechanics are pretty challenging. There is a lot of things that you need to know in the game regarding your enemies, what your units can do, and if you don't grasp it, you're gonna lose. So you really need to have a good understanding of your heroes, and what your unit can do. And if you do, you can turn the tide of very hard battles in your favor, but if you don't, the game will punish you. But that's a good aspect of the game. The research bar, or the research section, is divided in two aspects: military and society. And the military research is pretty interesting. Each race have their own military research. The Vanguard has theirs, the Assembly, the Syndicate, etc. have different technologies that they can be researched. And after that, you have different ways that those races can be played, like Void Tech. I don't remember the others, but Plague, etc. There's different technologies that you can associate your race with, and it gives a military research some freshness every single time, because when you combine the specific research of the race with the different ways that you can play the race with the different techs like Void Tech, Plague, etc., then you have a pretty diverse research capability. But we will come back to the society. The society research is pretty good. It's pretty in-depth, as you can see. But it's if you really want to research everything, you're gonna need to spend a lot of time, which is good. Because there is different options, and depending on where you are and which way you play and what is the map and what is the situation, you may gonna need to research different technologies to help you out. And globally, the research aspect of the game is pretty interesting. Another pro of the game is the ambience, or the general sound of the game is pretty good, especially when there are people talking, trying to immerse you in a specific technology. It's pretty well read and it's pretty well done. I have a few examples there for you to listen to, so I'm gonna shut up and let you listen.
To believe how paranoid you become once you finally glimpse the future and all the possibilities that hinge upon individual choices. Emperor Tholian.
Strap on that jetpack. Tread fire behind enemy lines. Answer the Star Union's call. Fight from the moment you awake from cryo-sleep. Skip the boring parts of life and feast solely on adrenaline. Regret nothing. Join the Vanguard.
Haven't I met you somewhere before? This is no pickup line. My instruments indicate you're a temporal anomaly. Or am I reality's echo? Rutger Norris II, Echo Walker.
Another also good aspect of the game is the music. The music of the battlefields are pretty good. They're not super extraordinary, but they do the job. They entice you in the moment. They feel right for what is happening in the game. And yeah, just gonna let you listen a little bit so you can have your own idea. Also, another aspect of the game that is pretty interesting is the auto combat, because when you are in the map and you have multiple squadrons wandering the map, not all combats are interesting or requires your full attention. Just like in this fight, as you can see, there is 6 units against 3 in the squadron. And that is a pretty easy fight, so you can request the game to do the combat manually, but in those kind of instances where it's pretty evident that your squadron is gonna win, you can just request an auto combat, and the game is pretty fair. So if you do an auto combat and you have a pretty good chance to win, you will win without too much losses, right? Which allow you to speed up a little bit the pace of the game and to focus only on the battles that matter. Another good aspect of the game is the Age of Wonders Planetfall have access to the Steam Workshop. So there's not many mods at the moment because the game just went out when I was testing the game, but there are many mods that is going to be created in the future, and that's going to increase the longevity of the game quite significantly. So that's a pretty good aspect as well. I always enjoy when games have Steam Workshops to allow modders to extend the longevity of the game. So for me, that's another pro. Another good aspect of the game is the multiplayer aspect. You can play with just the solo campaign, but you can also play in multiplayers against the AI or against other humans, of course. But you also have the possibility to play asynchron, meaning that you do your turn, you let the other one do the turn, etc. And it doesn't have to be real time. And when everybody have done their turn, then the next turn is being resolved. So that's pretty cool when you want to play with people in different areas of the world with different time zones, etc. You can do it that way, and that's pretty cool. Also, the other cool aspect is like the multiplayer can provide you a lot of different options to create your game. So as you can see, you have you can choose the type of world that you want. You can put the number of players and say, okay, I want 6 humans and the rest AI with independent factions. And I'm pretty sure that as the Steam Workshop is gonna provide more and more modability, there will be more worlds, there will be more options. But yeah, it felt like the multiplayer aspect of the game is pretty solid. And that for me, it's a very big plus because that's gonna increase the longevity of the game. Another thing also that you can see with the multiplayer aspect or even the scenario aspect is the diversity of options that the developer put it for you. You can specify exactly what you want to play against. You can really tune and customize almost every aspect of the game. And when developers do that, I really appreciate it because yeah, it just help us play the game that we want to play with our friends or even against the AI. We can put different scenarios that is going to be there in the Steam Workshop, and yeah, it's going to really increase the longevity of the game. So also when you create the game, you can select your commander, your hero, which is a pretty big aspect of the game. And then when you select the hero, you can customize it. You can give him traits, perks, and you can give him a specific way, you know, like for example Psy, Numbra, Voidtech, Phoenix, etc, etc. And each different way is gonna give you different access to technologies for your race. And yeah, it's just an interesting take. I like it, right? Like the fact that you can really go down and personalize your hero is pretty cool. The fact that you can personalize your race is cool, but you can give him perks, it's cool, you know. And I found that it's a very good aspect. Like I always enjoy when developers give the possibility for the players to customize, to make the game that they want to make, and to also customize the hero so they can invest themselves more and feel that it's more, yeah, a representation of themselves in the game. So now that we talked about all the pros that I found in the game, now we're gonna begin to talk about the cons. And the first con that I have with Age of Wonder Planetfall is the voice acting sometimes in the fights is not good, right? There's few lines said by the heroes in combat, and when you do multiple combats, after a while it really feels redundant and annoying. So if they put, for example, comments for the heroes to say in combat, that's fine, I like it, but then it needs to have a little bit more diversity. It needs to be a little bit better executed, because otherwise, amplified by the tens or hundreds of combat that we're gonna have, hearing the same time again and again can be extremely annoying. So I'm just gonna let you listen to what I mean.
Enemy destroyed. They've never stood a chance. Enemy down. Our forces are victorious.
And those voices, for example, for the human, for the Vanguard, is all that you're gonna hear, or most of what you're gonna hear in battle over and over and over and over. So yeah, you know, at the beginning it's okay, but as you fight and fight and do more combat, it really begins redundant. So that's the first con, at least for me. Another con that I found a little bit in the game is I found the campaign extremely generic. The campaign is made in order for us to be able to understand the principle of the game, etc. But yeah, globally there is a civilization that have been created in the galaxy, and something happened. You had to make a jump, and you have been stranded for 200 years in the void. And when you came out of the void, the civilization, as you know, fell, and you need to try to come back and reconquer it or rebuild it, whatever. And you need to play the different, for example, the Vanguard, and after you can unlock the Kenku, the Deva, etc, etc. But yeah, the campaign in this game is not necessarily the main forte, right? Like also the hero that you have is very cliche, generic, etc. Now, it's not necessarily gonna be something that is gonna prevent me from playing the campaign. But all what I'm saying is, like, don't buy Age of Wonder Planetfall for wonderful campaign, story writing, and things like that. The campaign is more there to introduce you, I feel, to the concept of the game and to help you understand how to play, so like that you can play deeper games in multiplayer mode. And it also helps you have a good understanding of the different races, what they stand for, what is their ideology, etc. So that's good in that aspect. But story wise, yeah, it's very generic. So that's another con for the game. Another con on the game is the tutorial. So there is a mission that we need to do to understand the basic of the game, and it's the tutorial. And as you can see, as soon as you arrive, you're bombarded by text that you need to read. Now, the beginning of the text is being voice acted, so that's pretty cool. But I know that there are multiple people that play the game and did the tutorial and say, what? I need to read all that, and you know, you're slanted by text after text after text. You know, wherever you go, there is more text and text. And I know that there are some people that have been, you know, a little bit annoyed by that. As you can see, like, no matter where you go, there is text. And I do understand, you know, like I understand that in order for them to explain the concept of the game, they have to, you know, tell you how the game works. But it just felt in the way that it has been executed that it was, as soon as you arrived in the tutorial mission, you were slanted by text to read. And yeah, some people didn't like it because they just feel that they are there to play a game and not to read. Now, me personally, I wasn't too bothered by that, because I know that in a game like Age of Wonders, there is a fair amount of things that need to be understood to really understand the game. And I'm used to games like X4, Foundation, and Distant Worlds, where there's a fair amount of reading. So for me, it wasn't necessarily too much of a problem. But I know that for other people that don't necessarily like reading, or just want to play the game and discover it by their own, etc. The tutorial wasn't going to work for them, right? And I know that some people just skip the tutorial and try to discover the game by themselves, or play with a friend on multiplayer and discover the mechanic by themselves. And, you know, it's perfectly fine. Like, if you want to do it that way, that's fine. But I feel that as game designers, if there are people that prefer playing the game with their friends to discover the mechanics instead of doing the tutorial, it means that something is a little bit off in the execution. Maybe leave a little bit more time for the players to go in to discover and invite people with text or having bubbles to explain, instead of just stopping the game and you need to read this, stopping the game, you need to read that, and that's a little bit too imposive and intrusive, at least for some people. Another con of the game is the social research tree. So I know that previously in the video I say that the research section is pretty good, and it is. For the military part, there is a fair amount of customization in there, so that's pretty cool. But in the society tree, almost every races have the same trees, and that's kind of a problem to me, because it just breaks the immersion to some degree. Because let's say, for example, you play the Kenko, which is an insect race. Well, the way that those races may develop their social aspect of their society may be very different from the way that the humans would do it, or that the Deva would do it, etc. So as much as we can see that there is a fair amount of attention that have been provided in the military aspect of the research of the game, it feels that the society aspect of the research is very similar to one race to another, which break a little bit the immersion to some degree, and also it feels that it hurts a little bit the replayability in that aspect of the game, because research is very important, and military is a big part of Age of Wonders, but how you develop your society, what technology you want to develop is pretty important too. Now I know that maybe the game developers went from the idea of generally independent on what the risks are, they're gonna need to research those technologies anyway. It's just the way that maybe they will present it, so I can understand that, but it would have been better if at least some of those technologies would have been reskinned or renamed differently for the different factions, just to provide a little bit more logic, right? For example, the insects, for example, may not need, because they're hive-minded, to have a protocol for individualism or things like that, right? Like maybe it would be the society aspect of the research would be more axed around being more in unity and connecting their mind to the hive, whereas humans would be more to develop protocols, and the dwarves would be more about developing their industry, and that's how they bond together. That's something like that, to continue in the perspective, the ideology of the races. As I said previously in the video, each race have their own feel and their own ideology, but it doesn't feel that ideology is being carried away in the society branch of the research. It's carried away in the military one, but not in the society one, and I feel that that's a little bit sad and wasted. Another aspect that can be a con in the game to some degree is the animations. Now, when you do multiple combat, you can see the units moving one by one in the battlefield, etc. And I know that Age of Wonders is a turn-based game, and it's pretty cool to see the units moving around in the map. But when you finish your turn and it's the enemy turn, and there are many units in the map, it's kind of slowing the pace of the game to see all the units walking one by one, Now, there is an option in the game that they added recently that gives the possibility to speed it up, right? So you can, when it's the enemy turn, speed up the animation, so like that you don't have to wait the entire animation to be resolved before the next units move, etc. So I found that pretty cool. But still, like, if you speed up the animation, the problem that you have is like it's it's a little bit too fast, and then you don't necessarily see what type of damage happened to which unit, or you don't necessarily see who attacked who, and sometimes it can be problematic, because as I said, in Age of Wonder Planetfall, the tactical aspect of the game is very important. So it's very important to know who attacked who, how many points do I have left, did they go in Overwatch, etc. And if the animation is too quick, then you can miss those information. So, and I'm not necessarily sure how they can fix that. I think the fact that they speed up the animation, or there is the option to speed up the animation, is pretty good. But I still feel that the two different speed, like the extreme speed is too fast, and the medium, it's okay, but maybe it would be nice to have a trigger where you can really set the pace where you're comfortable with, where you can see the animation moving quick enough, but you still can see what they're doing in the attack, etc. So maybe that, I don't know. But yeah, so as I said, like the fact that the units are moving individually and individually in the battlefield can slow the pace of the game, and the options that you have to speed it up are a little bit too fast, in my opinion, to really understand what's going on with the battlefield. So it needs to have a in between. I know that sounds a little bit picky, but trust me, when you are playing the game and you are doing hundreds and hundreds of combat, those kinds of details matter. Another con that I feel sometime in the game, not always, but sometime in the game, is the sound in the battlefield is a little bit average. Now, as I said, like it's still good. I mean, like it do the job, and you feel that you are in the battlefield. But just as I said, like the effect that I'm talking about is when you play the game and you do combats after combats and combats and combats. The sounds in question feel very redundant after a while, so maybe having a little bit of difference in the sounds and things like that will help reduce that effect. But yeah, it's true that sometimes the sound, the battle sounds, or the gunshots or things like that, the way it's executed is a little bit average. So let me play the sound so you can hear what I mean. So as you can see, like you have the unit shooting, it's like poo 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 poo, and you know, of course it's a sci-fi setting. There's gonna be a lot of guns, etc. But it's just like feel like in terms of the sound in the battle, it's just missing a little bit of something. At least for me, maybe I'm being a little bit picky, but that's how I felt while playing those combats. I felt that the battle sounds or the combat sounds were a little bit average sometimes. Another con that I have in the game, which is a little bit funny because it goes a little bit at the opposite what I said at the very beginning. So at the very beginning I said that there were 6 different races and they feel all unique. And I feel that it would be very welcome if maybe in DLCs or future expansion in the future, that would be able to add extra races, because 6 races are okay, but it would be nice to be able to have more options, especially with the social research tree. To have that tree feel a little bit more tailored to the race that you're applying, instead of having just a generic social research tree, that would be good. But also, you know, having different races mean more ways to play, more options, and that will really be a plus. Now, as I said, like this is not necessarily a con per se, it's just a future request for the game to develop in the future. If there are extensions, which I'm pretty sure there will be for this game, if they could add extra races and more you know, ways, you know, more options like Void Tech, Synthetic, Psynumbra, and all that stuff, having more of those. And as I said, like really having the possibility to maybe tailor a little bit the social tree, to the race that you're playing would be very nice. But for that con, I would just say like 6 different races is okay, but if you feel that it's the minimum, and maybe having a little bit more choices, maybe having 8 races would be nice, but that's me just being picky here. Now let's talk about the global overall impression that I have for the game. So I will put on the left side the pros, and in the right side the cons, the summary of them, so you guys can see all the pros and the cons that I feel that this game has, in my opinion. But what I wanted to talk about is to give a global overall mark of the game on how I felt about the game. So I would say that generally it's a well done 4X sci-fi game. It has a very decent replayability, and it challenges the players while making it accessible, especially at the beginning. I feel as well that in the experience that I had with it, I really enjoyed playing the game, and as I was getting deeper in the gameplay, I realized that slowly but surely the game was really revealing more complexity, more depth, and I really appreciated that as I progressed. I definitively want to play more of that game, and yeah, it's a very, very good successor to Age of Wonders, Age of Wonder 3. For the people that love the sci-fi genre, I'm pretty sure that you guys are gonna enjoy Planetfall. And also, maybe if you like fantasy and you never give a try to Age of Wonder 3, give it a try. It's a very, very good game, especially with the extension. Like, people love it. I love playing it. That being said, I would say that even if it's a very good game and well executed in general, there are still some aspects of the game that feel a little bit average, especially for the sound, some of the voice acting, the tutorial, all that feel pretty average, but it can be fixed in future updates in DLC, so I don't necessarily feel that that's gonna be too much of an issue in the future. So for the global mark that I'm gonna give to that game is gonna be an 8 out of 10. I think it's a very good game. If you are a fan of the sci-fi genre and of the 4X in general, I'm pretty sure that even at the price that is retail right now, at full price, it's worth it, right? But if you are a person that, you're not necessarily sure about the sci-fi genre, you love, for example, Age of Wonders, fantasy, but you don't like sci-fi, or for example, you love sci-fi but you're new to the 4X genre, maybe wait for a summer sale or a winter sale and after buy it then. That would be my recommendation. But if you love 4X games and you love the sci-fi genre, Planetfall will deliver, and I really think it's worth any penny that this game is requesting. So this is my general review of Age of Wonders Planetfall. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you feel that I missed something or you don't agree with me in something, please leave it in the comment section below. If you appreciate this review, please leave a like and subscribe. That will really help the channel, and I will catch you on the next video. Thank you very much, guys. Bye.